Hello, my hosts. Today we are doing some more editing. This is me trimming off all the bad parts. So let's get into that right now. All right. Yep, this is going to be first wave editing perspective. Let's just that in this machine perspective. Let's start with ourselves. Why is that like that? Oh. What edit mode am I in? No, that's not the button I want. So should be in cut mode. Yep. Why? Oh. Okay. What's... Switch ripple on. Does that fix that problem? Yes, it does. Okay, cool. Let's start with in perspective. Let's start with the identity function. This is a function that returns. I need slightly shorter there. This is a function that returns what it takes in without making a change. Now it's obvious that the change. Now it's obvious. Why is there a little there? Get rid of that. A change. Now it's obvious that both the domain, the place where let's extend that out slightly, the place where stuff is coming from. I don't know. Just want to adjust the and the codomain place that stuff is going to of the identity function must have the same number of elements in them because they're the same collection. An identity function is a bijection from a collection of objects to itself. Hello, New Haven. Oh, have I set up? I haven't set up the chat. That's me being silly. Hold on for a second. I'm going well. Let's adjust that there. There. Now we've got chat. Oh, I know how to do this. Adjust that button. So it expresses the rather simple idea. Oh, that's okay. Itself. So it expresses. So it expresses the rather simple idea that a collection that an object. Let's remove that. Rather simple idea that a collection has the same cardinality as itself. If we split identity function into two separate functions, one that there we go. All right. Oh, that sucks. One that transforms the elements from its domain into some other form within a codomain. Okay, remove that strange pause I had there. Form within a codomain. And then we have that and another strange pause. All right. Then we have a matching inverse function, which takes the intermediate form from that function's domain and transforms it back into the original. Sometimes it cuts too tight. The original. Then the intermediate collection has to have at least as many elements in it, if not more. In other words, it has to have an equal or larger cardinality than the original collection. Why? Because, all right, I'm going to briefly mention the pigeonhole principle here. Because if the intermediate form has fewer possible elements, it's a good time to be sick. Although, is it? And there will be a domain, then it's me repeating itself again, elements, then there would have to be a domain element that shares that shared a codomain element. Okay, I get you. Well, there have to be, because if the intermediate element, because if the intermediate form had fewer possible elements, then there would have to. Did I just go and repeat myself here? Then there would have to be a pair of codomain elements that shared. Oh. Okay, I think we can get this. And there would have to be a pair of codomain elements that share. There would have to be a pair of domain elements. Why am I lengthwise in the screen here? Good question. I record myself lengthwise because I can get my entire body into the capture software. Otherwise, if I did it vertically, I would have less resolution to play with, and there'd be a whole lot of empty space over here that would be useless. So it's a more efficient use of the page, the screen when I'm capturing. Sorry about chewing in your ear. No, elements that would share a codomain element, and that would be impossible. Then there would have to be, because if the intermediate form has fewer possible elements, because if the intermediate form had fewer possible elements that would share a codomain. This, by the way, is called, and that would be impossible. Elements that would share a codomain element. The intermediate form had fewer possible elements that would. Okay, let's do that. Possible elements, there would have to be a pair of domain elements. All right. Would share a codomain element, and that would be impossible. This, by the way, is called the pigeonhole principle. In other words, it would. In other words, in other words, it would. There we go. Yeah. It's weird. You do a lot more coughing in the recording than any other time. I guess it's because normally you don't continuously talk for about an hour. In other words, it. Yep. Other words, it has to be able to encode all the information from the source domain into. Yep. Yeah. I should do more warm-ups for my voice before I do these recording sessions. And get some Maluka honey, I guess. Into the intermediate form. If the functions are flipped around. Yep. Go like that. If, and tighten that up slightly. The functions are flipped around, and they are still a. There we go. And they are still a. If the functions are flipped around, and they are still. And they are still an identity. It goes. Yeah, let's see, that sounds good. Functions are flipped around, and they are still a. And they are still an. For me, I like to take things from practice speaking, and then intermediate form. If the functions are flipped around, and they are still a. And they are still. And they are. Let's try that. Flipped around, and they are still an identity. For instance, never assume in life, don't think that cannot big leaf cause small leaf cannot not big leaf big size. Still an identity. The only way this is possible is for the collections to be of equal size. In the type theory we're developing, we could define a byte. Okay. Trim that. A byte. We could define. Could define. Now could define a bijective this way. Now let's define bijective this way. One of the, and I'm going to be using a graphic for that. So I don't have to do that. Let's split that off. This way. In this formula, yeah. It's interesting. Two Blue, One Brown actually does his animations before he does his speech, almost Japanese style. But I'm not that talented and tend to be more vocal. In this formula, the f is a function. All right. The f minus is its inverse. All right. Inverse. And this little round all right, here we go. Dot represents composition. So applying, yeah. All right there. Applying F minus and then F to reverse it. One of the useful properties of a bijection. What did? Oh, got to split it first. Is that the fact? What? What have I done there? Did I start on a thought and then stop it? The fact that, yeah, if a function is bijective, it has one of the, let's get rid of you, is that the fact that if a function is bijective, it has an inverse that undoes that function is a very useful property. Yes, it is indeed. In addition, I mean, it's why modern change control systems work. You can compose bijections. You can impose. You can compose bijections. You can impose. You can compose different bijections together in order to have a chain of bijections that to show that two things are bijective to each other via, right, talking about the transitivity of bijections. All right. There we go. I'm just going to check something here. Let's have a stretch. All right. Stretching time, stretching time. All right, let's continue. Via something in between. I'll be using this later. Cantor's theorem is a set that is a set is a set that is a set is that a set. Let's get rid of me stammering over my words again. Cantor's theorem is a set theorem. Split is that a set cannot be put into bijection with its power set. Let's unpack each of the. Did I put this in the wrong order? I've gone over this again. Let's go. Big red mark. Check if I repeat myself. Let's unpack each of these. Let's unpack each of these. Let's unpack this statement into each of its component parts to explain it. A power set is the set of all subsets of a set. Each possible set that can be derived from the original. Yep. All right. Set given the inclusion or exclusions of elements from the original set. Each possible set. Did I check? Is a set derived from the original. The inclusion or given the set giving be derived from the original set. Split that. The inclusion. Each possible set derived from the original set. Each possible set is a set derived from the original set. Excludes. Yep. Excluding some. There we go. Some number of elements from that original set, including the trivial case here. The trivial case of all the elements are included and all the elements are excluded with finite elements. Yep. Finite elements, there will always. Yep. Like that. Screw that a bit. There will always be two. And we screw this one in, make it nice and tight. 2 to the power of n elements in the power set. Yep. Do I also mention this is called exponentiation? That should do. Cantor's theorem is that the power set will always have more elements in it. Yep. The elements in the original set. For finite sets, that is obvious, but Right. There we go. Get you here. Things get weird with infinite sets. So rather than going off what is obvious for finite sets, we have to have proofs. Indeed. Indeed. I love certain ones of proofs. Indeed. Certain turns of phrases to sort of join things up. This finding was actually very controversial. It's actually incredibly contentious. Even now, there are anti-Cantor kooks. I don't know why, but there are. You will come across people who will incorrectly claim that this isn't true for standard mathematics. /r/bad
I'm going
mathematics.
to give you the proof for Cantor's theorem, but first I'm going to explain the connection between the power set of the natural.
Okay.
Of the naturals. Connection between the power set of the counting set between the connection between the power set. I'm going to explain the connection between
Let's split that off.
Between I'm going to explain between the power set of the counting numbers and
there goes.
And the badly named real numbers. It'll also be a warm-up for my Factorio-like presentation of
There and there.
Presentation of mathematical proofs. I like to think of bijections as a form of encoding.
That down.
If there is a bijection between two things, you can encode that thing in the form of the other.
Say I've got $1 million idea. We take some Italians, have them sing in English, and then we'll use the music in Japanese. Makes me want to go sideways.
For example, consider the 26 letters of the English alphabet. You can
You can encode each of those letters as a counting number from 0 to 25. There is an unambiguous reversible rule. There is an ambiguous. There is an unambiguous reversible rule that allows you to encode any letter as a number in this range and any like that. Any why have I got as a number in this range? Yeah. All right. As a number in this range, and any number in this range as a letter. Now, consider the power set of the counting numbers. All right. Counting numbers. We can encode these as bit streams, sequences of ones and zeros. Counting numbers. Okay, I'm going to mark this one. So I want to put another comment here. Add comment for this stamp. Technically, I do a bit of a naughtiness here. The bit streams represent the decidable subsets of the countable numbers. However, the argument basically works for both counting numbers. We can encode these as bit streams, sequences of ones and zeros that start but never end. We can index each position in this stream, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., for all of the counting numbers. And if the number is present in the subset, then a 1 will be set in the stream. Otherwise, a 0 is set. You can think of this as encoding. Introduce that, coding subsets as functions that take right there and there. Functions from the counting numbers to 0 or 1. I wonder why the auto silence remover didn't pick that one up. Again, where that function it goes. where that function takes a counting number and returns 1 if that particular number is present in the subset, and 0 if it's absent. This is why I will abuse notation and sometimes write this as the type as the type natural to 2. Yep. Just as an aside, it doesn't really. What was this aside I made? Just as an aside, it doesn't really matter what the 2 elements of the Boolean type are like. And I briefly sort of tend towards Euler variants, I think, are labelled as. It could be a 0 or 1, top or bottom, left and right. Now it goes left and right, etc. Next, I'm doing well. Next, I'm going to massage the bit streams a little by applying another level of encoding. This new encoding like that. If the original is a sequence of all zeros, it is going to be encoded. There we go. Encoded as 1 followed by all zeros. The original 1 followed by all zeros. Okay, Jordan. There's lots of people with sore guts going around today. So all zeros in the original is going to be encoded as 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. On shifting the ones down a set. All other streams will be unaffected by this encoding. If you don't understand the type I've denoted here, this is more of an Easter egg for more advanced viewers. The important part is this is all the bit streams except for the 0-bit stream. So this is a that's tightened up here. Unambiguous reversible rule. Reversible rule. Reverse rule. It's interesting how some words sort of like merge into the next word. a reverse rule that allows us to encode one type into the other. So there is a bijection between these two forms, and since bijections are transitive, it means that there is a bijection from that as well from the natural number power set. It means that this is from the it means from there is a it means that there from it means that this is bijective to the counting number power set. The reason why I want the zero stream to be removed will become clear in a moment. But if you want to, please guess. Try to work out why I might have a problem with a stream of all zeros. All right. Zeros. Just before we get to that problematic operation, I've got another additional layer of encoding to do. Okay, we have all seen we will use a similar technique. We have all additional layer of encoding to do. We will use a similar technique to limit to eliminate any stream that ends with all ones. Although in this situation, I'll keep the all one stream. Again, explanation for this will come in a moment. All of these transformations I'm making, you can you can consider a bit similar to how we move guests around in the Hilbert Hotel. Although the Hilbert Hotel has a countable number of guest rooms, and this has an uncountable number of guest rooms. Just a second, I need to do another stretch. Let me do that. Right. Yep. Goes. Ah. All right. Yeah. Hmm. There we go. All right. Now, with the, with this system, we can stick a 0 and a radix point at the start of the streams, and okay, encode them as binary numbers in the range encode them as binary numbers in the range of da, 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 of greater than 0 of greater than 0 up to 1 inclusive, and by eliminating the trailing ones in these streams, we have removed any of the double counting situations. Oops. Undo that. I wanted to remove you. Any of the double counting situations. All right. With situations like 0 point like 0.01 repeating being equal to 0.1. Yep. Actually comes, that type of thing actually becomes very important when you're doing countable reals. Sort of like a part of the whole reason why countable reals end up to be always continuous. If we take the reciprocal of this number, we have now encoded all of the elements for the power sets, as real numbers greater than or equal to 1. Did you guess that I had to eliminate the all zeros case because we're going to be doing something with division? If so, here is a smiley face stamp. I love smiley face stamps. Next step, subtract 1. Now, our power set is encoded as all the non-negative reals. All these binary numbers will have almost all that will have almost all that almost all these binary almost all of these binary numbers will have their most significant digit set to 1. If the one that doesn't is 0. If the digit following the most significant digit is set to 0, we'll remove that digit and negate the resulting number. There we go. Resulting number. Otherwise, we'll just remove the most significant. Otherwise, we'll just the most significant. Otherwise, okay, there, like that. Otherwise, we'll just remove the second most significant digit and return that. There we go. And return that number. Now, we are encoding in the form of all the reals. With this chain of bijective encoding, yep. All right. With this chain of bijective encodings from the power set of the counting numbers to the real form of reals, we have. All right. Retract that and retract that. We have proven there is a bijection between the reals and that power set. And reals and that power set. As I have said before, there are quite a lot of maths cranks out there who don't like Cantor's theorem. Honestly, I don't know why, but some people are really uncomfortable. It goes with the fact that infinities come in different sizes. I am going to now give, all right, a proof of Cantor's theorem for the counting numbers, aka the natural numbers, this argument can be generalized to all infinite sets. Later on, we will generalize this proof further. Okay. Oops. To include the halting problem of computer programs. Did I do like that? An even provability within mathematics. How long have we been recording for? 24 minutes. Okay. 24 minutes. Okay, let's do the second. I like how these little conversations I have with myself. Mathematics. Oh, let's get rid of that cough. Now we are ready for the proof of Cantor's theorem. All right. There cannot be a bijection between the naturals and its power set. And its power set. Just a reminder, when we say not something in Cantor, in type theory, Cantor, in Cantor, in Cantor, when we say not something in type theory, we secretly mean a function from the thing to the empty type. All right. And how do we prove a function exists? By constructing a function that corresponds to the type specified. The sigma sign can be read as there exists. All right. It says there is. Let's retract that. That. All righty. There is a pair of functions from the naturals to the power set. And back again. All right. That are inverses of each other. So if you I tend to use the words counting numbers and natural numbers interchangeably. So if you compose or chain the two functions together, they will cancel each other out and become the identity function. And here is my diagram. All right. Here is my diagram of this type. We have to construct a function that takes elements of the bijection. We have to construct a function. Construct a function that takes. Go. All right. We have to construct a function that takes
elements of this by ejection and show if it existed, then it would output an element of the empty type. Since by definition the empty type doesn't have all right, doesn't have any elements, we have proven, there it goes, that this type must not have any elements. Let's subtract this down. According to the definition of a bijection, we have effectively four things right there. Things to work with. A alright. Forward function. Forward function from the natural numbers into the power set. This is in into the power set. This is in a way a universal function. All right, just trim that off. That allows numbers to talk about numbers. Because every property of the counting numbers corresponds to a subset. Okay, a subset like all the primes, all the even numbers, the set of billionaire credit card numbers and such like. Like, if this function existed, I'll have to look up the dummy credit card number thing. It would be able to generate the characteristic generate the it would be able to the characteristic function for every subset. It is a function that would return true. Number is a part of that subset. So the part of that subset, the universal function takes a number. Yep. And returns a characteristic function. Okay. That number so the universal function that number, so the universal number and return function that number, so the universal function that number, so the universal function takes a number and returns that number's characteristic function. Yep. That would return true if that number is a part of that subset. So the universal function takes a number and returns that number's characteristic function. The characteristic that number's characteristic function. The characteristic function would then take that number's characteristic function. The characteristic function characteristic function would then take a separate number and tell you if that number belongs to that subset. Note, there doesn't have to be any logical relationship. Relationship between a particular number and what characteristic function it would correspond to. It would be like there we go. It would be like if you had a library full of books about particular functions. Particular function, and you just happened to have functions, and you just happened to number every book with a particular number. All right. Now, or maybe an encyclopedia, perhaps of integer sequences, which would be online. The inverse of this function would take a power set. There we go. So how long beyond? Yep, another stretch time. Let's do some more stretches. All right. All right. And turn it back. Here we go. Into the characteristic number for that particular set. It would sort of compress all of these numbers back into a single number. We are also supplied with a witness. Can I get a witness? The inverse
Witness
function
me.
inverses the forward function. And a witness function, witness that the forward function is the inverse's function inverse. You just realize that Hugh has programmer socks on the thumbnail? Yeah, because I'm a programmer. Function inverse. Proofs of the left. These are proofs These are proofs of the left and right inverses. These witnesses are basically what ensures the functions behave as inverses of each other. All right. Otherwise, okay, they could just be any pair of functions. With these functions, we can construct a helper function that looks like this. This anti-diagonal function, which I'm going to represent using a th. Okay. Because it looks like a backwards capital D, takes a number. Get rid of that. A number, looks up that number. There we go. Tract that back. Looks up that number from the universal function. Then applies the same number to the return function. And returns the opposite result. Okay. The opposite result. However, this function, this is a however, this is a function from the counting number. There it goes, like that, like from the counting numbers to the bool. This is a function from the counting numbers to bool. Did I say that twice? Function from the counting numbers to the bool. This is right. Yep. This is a function from the counting numbers to bool. There it goes. Numbers to bool. So we can actually use the inverse function track that back, the inverse function to give us the number for this function as a character. Okay. Function as a characteristic function. All right. Function as a characteristic function, which I am going to label. It goes lowercase d, which I am then going to write backwards. Now, I pushed roll. Okay. If we feed, oops, split that. If we feed B back into D, we can construct this monstrosity. Back into D, we can construct this monstrosity. All right. and it doesn't make much sense without the visuals, but we've got there. Ah. In Chicago, they have gas burners next to the switches to prevent them from freezing over. I'm assuming you mean the rail switches, or in British parlance, the points. Yeah. Now I've just had an amusing idea. Then, yeah, and if we feed that, why don't the British call IP switches points that into the witness of these witness of these numbers being an inverse? First, we can expand it. We can expand everything until we get this. Since we know that, right, write these down, that B is a Boolean. We also know that no matter what value, this equality must be untrue. Since we know that that B, okay, a bit is value, this Boolean. We also B is a Boolean. Since we know that is a Boolean, B is a Boolean, we can that goes in. We can examine. It's an interesting solution as well. Although here the main problem is with the tracks overheating. There's a particular warning that goes out when the temperature gets over, I think it's 35 degrees, called WOLO, which means the trains have to go at a slower speed because of the potential of the rails buckling. But the thing is, nobody knows what WOLO actually means and where it derives from. Cases. We can examine the case where B is true. In that case, we get true equals false, which is obviously false. Hello, Densu Main. We can examine the case in the match. Oh, what did I do here? What? We can examine the case where B is false. Ah. It's well, but don't have special anti. This isn't anti-buckling equipment. It's more anti-buckling procedures. Chicken butt. Then we get false equals true. Again. The other one is, guess what? Volt amps. That has to be false. Why aren't you... There we go. So we have created an element that must be in the empty type. That is the thing. Do you have rock slide fences down under? I think we have a few up in the mountains, but the thing is, most of our mountains are very old and not too high, so we don't have as many problems with rock slides. Is the thing we set out to do. Yeah, all of our mountains are puny. Good to do. Oh, except maybe down in Victoria. But even there, they're not sort of Alps scale out to do. Thus proving our there it goes. Thus proving that if there was a bijection, all right, between power set, you have a lot of them in the States, particularly on the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington State. That makes sense. I mean, they're also quite seismically active. So you'd get a lot of earthquakes sort of rattling up the rocks, so they're more likely to slide, I'm guessing. And the counting numbers. Right. Counting numbers. Then... Okay. Then there would... Right. Then there would... That we've just proved that if it was a bijection... We've just proved... There we go. So, I have been at this for quite a while, and my head is feeling rather zonked. Let's do that. That button? No, it's not the button I want. How do I guess I'm going to do it manually here. Okay. Yeah, earthquakes and also Rocky Mountains being right there. That part of the country is very prone to rock slides. I guess so. I mean, guess what? That's why they call it the Rocky Mountains. Oh, that was not what I intended. Okay. Yep. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me as I edited my next video on Wells theorem. We edited a bit that was covering Cantor's theorem here. and we will continue with that. I'll continue with this over the day, but for the rest of you, tomorrow we'll have some RimWorld. If it's your first time watching, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you all later. Goodbye.